functional CCTVs. We're joined this morning by Mr. Wilson Inaligo, who is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police. You're welcome to our studios this morning.
It's a pleasure for me to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. The more I look at this story, the more it looks like a script, a badly written script from fiction. I mean, the more details you hear of it, the more you are in a state of wonder and bewilderment as to what exactly is going on in our country. When you hear things like a prison facility doesn't have CCTV, functional CCTV cameras, when you hear things like the inmates had, those who rescued or who freed, who did the jailbreak, had time to preach. They organized a sermon of some sort to the inmates before giving their members transport money and then, letting people go. You have to ask, what exactly are we looking at here? What are we dealing with?
Yeah, certainly the attack on Kuje Correctional Center is an unfortunate development, and it's quite sad. Especially that we have recorded attacks in various prisons. Owerri Prison, Jos Prison, Kotonkarufe, Kaba, and now Kuje in the FCT.
That there was precedent before
so
this particular attack.
I think there should have been lessons learned. And based on lessons learned, and then based on evolving daunting security challenges, such area of focus must be given adequate attention. And I believe investigation will be carried out. Or there could be even an inquiry into what really happened. So when you have that inquiry, it's going to bring out more facts, because we are hearing a lot of things. But when things like this happen, we begin to question what kind of security arrangement is on ground, what kind of resistance did the officers on ground put, how is the perimeter security protected. I don't know if there are no CCTV cameras in that place, but there should have been, because for a facility of that magnitude, of that size, of that significance, you should have CCTV cameras so that from a room you could see what is happening, and with the radio communication you see what is going on around it. And I think when things like this happen, I ask, what is the relationship of even the prison with the immediate community? Because one of the accounts I read by those who live very close, they saw some people milling around, smoking, and they didn't know them. And nobody put a call to any person. So I think there are basics that should be provided. And such a place should be difficult to penetrate. So first of all, the question I want to ask is, how many officers were on duty? What kind of arms did they carry? What kind of resistance did they put? I think these are issues that should be interrogated. But more importantly, like I have always said when I come to your studio, it's about security, it's about partnership. The moment we have breached that security in the immediate vicinity of the prison, of course it's very difficult to do. But what happened before then? With these sleeper cells of these terrorists, did we have any inkling that they were coming? Did we have information? Did we act on the information?
So
how was our response? If those on duty were overwhelmed, what of the first responders? How were we able to respond? Some people, how did we mobilize the entire intelligence, law enforcement, and other people within our communities to be able to rearrest some of these people? So I think there are a lot of questions begging for answers. But essentially, law enforcement, intelligence is the focus, the pillar of success is on partnership. I don't know what really happened. And I think it would be really unfortunate if there are no CCTVs, because with all that has happened, I don't believe that there are no CCTVs.
So
I find it difficult.
From the visuals that we saw, I mean, from the visuals that our correspondent captured, there are CCTVs there, but they are non-functional from the testimony of the Senate President. I mean, he paid a visit there, and he talked about non-functional CCTV. So the cameras are there. Yeah. We purchased them at some point, but they're not working.
Yeah, but that is why there should be accountability. Somebody should be responsible for manning the CCTV. Somebody should be there to ensure that the CCTVs work. What I used to do when I was in one of the South West states as Commissioner of Police, if we had an incident or attack in a bank, and what I do you have functional CCTV? And if there are no functional CCTVs, the first line of suspect or suspicion I have, there should be internal connivance. Either you switch off when you have connived and all this. But one of the things I want us to address, because you may not rule out internal collaboration, perhaps not by the correctional officers, but by the inmates, because what is the level, are they allowed to use telephone? At night, how was it easy to identify the cell where these terrorists were detained? How come they were put in the same cell, which provides ground for them to enter into any kind of connivance to perpetuate this? Because we've got to, I expect the superintending officers of the correctional center to have spot checks in the various cells where are people carrying phones? Because if they are carrying phones into their cells, unknown to the officers, or with the connivance of some unscrupulous correctional officers, that can compromise the security of the prison. Because I think there was proper timing, but because there has been a lot of lessons learned. Perhaps we need to put all this from all the attacks on the other prisons. I think it should have been able to generate some documentation.
I think you mean to say that a lot of lessons were generated, but it doesn't look like any were learned.
Yeah, well,
because if lessons were learned, I mean, when you take a look at the questions which the president himself asked on his visit, how did the defenses at the prison fail to prevent the attack? How many inmates were in the facility? How many of them can you account for? How many personnel did you have on duty? How many of them were armed? Were there guards on the watchtower? What did they do? Does the CCTV... These are the same questions you and I are asking. So if I mean, from the accounts that we have seen, that we have heard, and from what we have seen on the ground, it doesn't look like any lessons were imbibed from previous attacks.
Yeah, you see, that is what I have been trying to say. Because, like you say, if you generate lessons, we expect that these lessons will be imbibed and incorporated in training and in part of briefing to officers. But sometimes, some officers may not do the needful. That's why I think
but it's the duty of somebody to make them do the needful, isn't it? The way security hierarchy works, isn't it the duty of somebody to make sure that officers do what they need to do at certain times?
Yeah, that's why there are sanctions on officers who fail, who they elect on their duty. Like in the MPF, the police, when things like this happen, we address issues of supervision, they were addressing issues of dereliction of duty, and we also address issues of us bringing the force to public embarrassment. So I think there will be sanctions, certainly, because there must have been some failure. We don't say that these things cannot happen. They can happen, but there should be some level of fight back, no matter how small. But even if you say all this, the partnership we develop with our communities is what is going to prevent that they never even get to even to the facility. Like I have always emphasized, the moment you breach the walls, the other inside will collapse. So the major point, and that is the take for all intelligence, law enforcement, and other non-state actors, that what we need to do, we must build partnership. We must share information on the need to know. We must bring our communities from the ward level, from the local government level, and the state level, so that if there are no exchange of information, because I think when these people are massing up, some people see them. So we've got to train our communities to recognize when there are threats and how they can disseminate such information to relevant authorities. When you don't do that, because the law enforcement agencies alone, like even if you had deployment in that place and they had no prior knowledge, somebody has to interdict, to intercept before these things happen. And the idea is this: the FCT has to be given top-class security protection. And you don't protect by only protecting infrastructure and government departments alone. You've got to go to the outlying areas, because when they come, many of them are not going to stay in Maitama. They are going to stay in Asokoro, because people find them. But they are more likely to stay in places like Gwagwalada, also Kuje, because of its semi-rural nature. They are going to stay in Buari. They are going to stay in Abaji, in Kwali. So what arrangement do we have in those places? How do we treat the threats that emanate from those places? And in worship centers, when you find somebody, next person sitting on a pew in the church, have you seen that fellow before? Where has that fellow come from? Or in the mosque, early morning prayer, somebody joins you in prayer. Where has that guy come from? There must be a mechanism for passing on such information about strange individuals in communities, strange behavior. So everything is about community trust based on partnership.
Further lessons which you're generating, and maybe we should apologize to our viewers that, we're still in a state of shock. I'm sure they too are. They're still trying to wrap their heads around the event that happened 2 nights ago. But what I'd like to ask is what exactly we should be doing now, because we've been told that over 400 inmates are still on the run. A number of them dangerous terrorists. From the reaction, from what you have seen so far, the response of government in trying to mobilize the people to get these people back, have you seen the level of mobilization which you say can inspire confidence in you that indeed we're hot on the trails of these people who are fleeing the custodial center?
Yeah, on the physical level, we are seeing a lot of patrols, increased patrols, especially within the precincts of Kuje. And
you're saying patrols?
Yes, some patrols and checkpoints to check. But that is going to happen. But I think there are officers that are not in uniform, plainclothes officers, that have mingled with the communities. I think those officers, there is massive deployment by the police SIB and I believe operatives of the TSS and other intelligence units. They are all out, because this is a call to action by all. And we've got to also look at even the hospitals.
Is it too late, 48 hours after?
No, it's not too late. Even 3 months. Because these people are not used to the larger society. They've been kept aside. Their behavior will offer some strange distance. So you are going to look for them in hotels, at motor parks. You are going to see some of them. You are going to see some of them in labor, people standing on the road to be employed, to work in building sites, because they want, some of them may not have enough money. Forget about that story that they gave each one 2,000. I'm not sure 2,000 can take somebody from here to Kano or to Ibadan. So they may need to work in some building sites, even in security. If you see people, all the building sites employing security, this one is from Niger, this one is from Chad, you engage them, any strange person. So there must be mass population in the various community radios, the FM stations and television like yours, mobilizing the people. Once you do that, you are going to get a lot of them back, a lot of them back. But what I am interested in is we've got to look at a general assessment. I'm happy that top government officials, including the president himself, visited the facility. A lot of changes are going to take place. Even the lessons that have been generated, some have been learned. But just like you say, with due apology, some of these attacks are so fast, so rapid, that they can take somebody unawares. But getting these people back, we've got to work with the National Road Transport Workers. We've got to work with hotel owners. We've got to work with hair salon, especially the local areas where, they barb about 200-300, because some of them may have overgrown hair. And then if you look at them psychologically, and I know the prison officials are so good in recognizing their inmates. And I believe the correctional authorities must have deployed all the officers from their headquarters to their zonal and command levels. They are very, very good. They are going to get some of these people back. But neighboring states of Niger, Kaduna, Kogi, Nasarawa, and those highly populated areas of Maraba, Madala, Suleja, all these places must be infiltrated, and they are going to get some of them back. And also,
I'm just taking a look as the visuals are playing. This is when the president visited. I'm looking at the medium security facility itself from the outside, and how maintained it looks. It does say a lot about our maintenance culture. It says a lot about, just how we regard it. Only recently, there's a lot of fanfare around how, we've changed the name from the Nigerian Prison Service to Nigerian Correctional Facility. When you look at the algae growing on the walls, the state of the facility in general, and this one in Abuja, in Kuje, is supposed to be one of the best around the country. You have to ask, wasn't this going to come? If we're going to take a critical look and analysis of what it is that we're doing, this attack is not unexpected.
Well, going by the history of attacks in some of the facilities, we should anticipate
not just
that
the history,
Kuje,
but the state of the facilities.
Yes. I think that is why I say going forward, we've got to look at the structure of our facilities. We've got to make it impossible that even if you break in, you will not be able to free any inmate. And when you are, I want to align with you that there must be a need for an upgrade, kind of. And what do I mean by upgrade? When you are coming from the back, try as much as possible to keep residential, even though they are for officers, a little bit distant, so that you can create a buffer between the facility and this thing. And now where you have a ravine or a stream running through, you've got to know that it's your vulnerable point. That when a facility is going to be attacked, because even in burglary, from experience, that where you have these canals, you will have your patrols along the highways, and these guys go through the canal, break into a house, and they escape through the canal. So from what the report said, there's a place like a canal or a stream at the back. I don't know if they infiltrated through that end, but CCTV camera will help a lot, because number one, even if it will act as a prevention, because you could see, even if you don't see any breach, in investigation, you are going to see certain things that the account that you are getting may not be as accurate as what really happened. And this you use in your training school. I think we need to think. Let me give you an example. I was in a peacekeeping mission in a foreign country several years ago. And they had this issue of liberation fighters attacking police facilities, correctional centers, and all the rest. And they did something. They made it impossible that, but it's in a war situation, that in such facility, they are protected by a cordon. If you try to enter through any way that is not authorized, you are going to have a blast. And that will keep you away. So where you have high profile, you've got to say it's a danger zone. So nobody is going to penetrate unless through the perimeter fence, unless the road you have created. And all officers are warned. And I think we are getting to a level that we've got to upgrade temporarily. When the threat is over, we can remove such protection. But I think we've got to think of penetrating. And then we've got to also design the prisons like it is not to have a place that is not easy to break, even underground, that you can protect. And then they have basements that even if you enter. So I think going forward, if there are new prisons to be built or makeovers of these prisons, I think they should be designed in such a way that you've got to breach several fences before you get, to the inmates. That will help. But we are dealing with terrorism. We are dealing with violent extremism. And when you are dealing with situation, and it's evolving, we've got to carry every person on board. And we've got to mind certain things, the little behavior of our officers, especially in a correctional center. Yes, you've got to be friendly with the inmates, but there should be a red line. Don't give them phone. Don't let them make phone calls. I have seen, not in Nigeria, but where I was in a foreign mission on the West Coast, where major crime was being planned from the prison. And the kingpin was in the prison. He had his phone, and he was organizing violent crime until it was traced to him. So if you allow inmates to carry crime, but if you have it in a structured manner, that if they need to contact relations for whatever, they should make phone calls through official means, but private phones in the cells. Because they can do everything.
For a long time, I know that, as a TV station, we had done some reports on the fact that inmates were, allowed to carry their phones in, not the Abuja Correctional Center, but in Lagos. And if it was happening in Lagos, there's no telling if it would not be a surprise if it was happening here in Abuja as well. Not only did they have phones there, they had generating sets to charge their phones. These are things that we're able to capture on our cameras. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions to ask about the state of our correctional, in quote, facilities. But I'm just looking at the aftermath of this, because for a number of people, confidence has been broken, and they're wondering what assurances, because so far so good. We have not been able to hear from the Minister of Interior, the CG of Immigration, beg your pardon, now the Controller General of the Nigeria Prison Service or Correctional Service has not spoken, apart from the visitors who have been, the high-profile visitors who have been to the facility. There has been no official question and answer session where people can actually glean what exactly is going on. There has been nobody to really address Nigerians on what measures are being put in place. Okay, so maybe, I don't know what exactly happens within security circles when this sort of breach happens. Do they call all security officers, brief them and tell them what next to expect?
No. When you have a situation like this, you've got to give out the information you have initially. I think the PAMSEC in the Interior did address the press. I think something like that happened. But when you've got to be careful the information you give out, and you want to really understand the situation what really occurred. And I think the immigration service, the correctional service, is going to give out, detailed information of what happened on what they are doing. But I think the public should not be demoralized. I think we must continue to have confidence in our security forces. Within the time this happened, several inmates were brought back. And we must commend the security agencies for that. But we must also not lose confidence in them, because if we do, then we are in trouble. That's what the terrorists want to achieve. Therefore, what do? We've got to support them. We've got to go all out there to support them. And in supporting them, we've got to look at, if there are things that we think they should have done, they didn't do, we must find means of communicating such to the authority. And also, we must see all the security agencies are partners. We must encourage interagency cooperation and collaboration, because it is in partnership that we can win. Partnership with the public. I emphasize hospitals, mental homes, because some of these things that occur, some of these things I think are mentally deranged. And we must come together. We must not see it from any window. We must see it from the perspective that these are enemies of the society. They are not enemies of Christians or Muslims or anything. They're enemies of our society. They're enemies of our communities. What do they seek to do? They seek to destroy life. They seek to cause fear and panic. They seek to bring down our economy. So we must come together as a people and fight them. We must not see them. And that is why I want to re-emphasize what I said. If you look at the next person sitting to you in the church, did you see him last Sunday? Did you see him
Who should people report to in the events that they see people that are strange around the environment? What numbers have been publicized, in the wake of this attack, to say if you see something strange, report to those numbers? We haven't quite heard anything.
Yeah, I think I read online, and each time the police PRO comes out, they usually, like if I were in service, as I'm sitting here, you'll be seeing the hotlines scrolling. And I think it is part of the partnership that I talk about. I think TV stations, radio stations should occasionally or frequently broadcast police hotlines and other security hotlines. That way you can cooperate. But more importantly, at the ward level, every ward should have a mini security committee, or district level, or local government level. You see, security, like politics, is local.
Indeed.
All these people exist in our communities. So there must be active collaboration, and there must be support for security forces. Let me give you an example.
No, I'm sorry, we're totally out of time. We do not have time for more examples. But in terms of the hotline, I can tell you that, if we do get the hotlines, we're happy to scroll them so that people can, know who to call. We have to thank you so much for, shedding light on trying to help make sense of what transpired at the Kuje prison 2 days ago. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Wilson Inaligo is a former Assistant Inspector General of Police and has been speaking to us here in our Abuja studios.